My precious child, listen carefully with your entire being. What I speak now is not merely a gentle reminder. This is the clarion call for your spirit's awakening. The season of comfortable living is drawing to its close. A new chapter is opening before you, one draped in sacred reverence you have never experienced. I do not speak to frighten you. I speak because my love runs too deep to leave you sleeping in sweet deception. The foundations you trusted for security have been slowly crumbling from within. You believed yourself covered and safe, yet you have been lulled into spiritual slumber by things that numb your soul. I can remain silent no longer. The comfortable rhythms of your daily existence have become a trap. The routines you follow without thought have dulled your spiritual senses. You have mistaken busyness for purpose. You have confused activity with spiritual growth. But I am calling you to something far greater than the mediocre existence you have settled for. The great clearing begins. I am preparing the battlefield of your heart. Everything that once seemed like protection will begin falling away. Layer by layer, piece by piece, until you stand face to face with naked truth. You cannot lean on temporary things to fulfill eternal purposes. I am purifying you not to abandon you. I am leading you to the place my hand has prepared. You have lived too long in false peace, unaware that you have drifted from the wellspring of life. These things cannot accompany you into the next season. They will become heavy burdens and binding chains. Some may even become sparks that ignite destruction when the mighty wind begins to blow. The clearing I speak of is not violent or cruel. It is the gentle yet firm removal of everything that hinders your spiritual progress. Like a master gardener who knows which branches must be pruned for the tree to bear much fruit. I see what you cannot see. I know which relationships drain your spiritual vitality. I recognize which habits slowly poison your soul. I understand which thought patterns keep you bound in cycles of defeat. All of these must be addressed. All of these must be surrendered to my perfect will. The struggle of surrender. My child, I see you are not yet ready. I witness the anxiety flooding your heart, the internal war between what you know you must do and what you resist releasing. But I am not seeking someone already prepared. I am looking for a soul willing to surrender completely. If you will lay everything before me, both good and toxic, I will do the impossible within you. I will transform the desert of your soul into springs of living water. I will turn your brokenness into solid foundation. From fragments you thought worthless, I will write a chapter no one expected. Surrender is not a one-time event, but a daily choice, a moment-by-moment decision to trust my ways over your understanding. You extend your hand. Trust me, Daddy. Disciples, you can trust me. I have always been. It requires laying down your need to control outcomes. It demands releasing your grip on how you think things should unfold. True surrender means acknowledging that my thoughts are higher than your thoughts. My ways are higher than your ways. It means accepting that my timing is perfect, even when it doesn't align with your plans. The struggle you feel is natural. Every human soul wrestles with the call to complete surrender. But those who overcome this resistance discover treasures hidden in the darkness. They find strength they never knew they possessed. Beyond mere survival. You once believed staying peaceful and avoiding extremes would suffice. But child, I did not call you to merely be fine. I called you to burn with holy fire. I called you to shake darkness with light, radiating from your spirit's depths. The place that once knew me intimately, that once wept in my presence, that has long lacked courage to confront the weight of my voice. I have waited patiently. I have knocked on your heart's door through quiet moments and fractured dreams. Through seemingly random encounters I orchestrated myself. Survival mode is not your destiny. I did not create you to merely endure life's challenges. You were designed to thrive in every season, to flourish even in the midst of adversity. The enemy wants you to believe that getting by is enough, that maintaining the status quo is acceptable. But I have called you to be a catalyst for change. a vessel through which my glory is revealed. Your life is meant to be a testimony of my goodness, a living example of transformation and renewal. When others look at your journey, they should see evidence of my faithfulness, proof that I am still working miracles in human hearts. This requires stepping beyond your comfort zone. It demands courage to embrace the unknown. The sacred whirlwind approaches. But now, I no longer come like a gentle breeze. I come like a sacred whirlwind. Not to destroy you, but to sweep away everything that does not belong to me. Child, you no longer have time to delay. Your soul's slumber has lasted long enough. The moment has arrived for your spirit to awaken. The time has come to choose between heaven's call and the world's seduction. The voices of this age will try holding you back. They will promise comfort, recognition, and success. But all of it is illusion, without me at the center. The whirlwind I speak of is my love in action. It is my mercy moving to rescue you from spiritual stagnation. What seems chaotic from your perspective is perfectly ordered from mine. What appears destructive is actually reconstructive. I am not tearing down to leave you in ruins. I am clearing the ground to build something magnificent. The old structures of your life were never meant to be permanent. They were scaffolding used during construction. Now that the real building is ready to emerge, the scaffolding must be removed. This process requires faith. It demands trust in my perfect plan, even when you cannot see the blueprint. The whirlwind separates what is eternal from what is temporary, what is precious from what is worthless. The impossibility of divided hearts. You cannot hold my hand while clinging to the world. You cannot plead for my guidance while walking your own way. I need you to be resolute. I need you to choose decisively. You will ask, how can I prepare when I don't understand what's coming? Preparation does not begin with understanding. It begins with surrender, when you place your hand in mine completely. When you release what you cannot control and open your heart to the unimaginable. That is when true preparation begins. Not by human strength or strategy, but by my presence walking with you. A divided heart is a tormented heart. It lives in constant conflict between competing loyalties. You cannot serve two masters without experiencing internal warfare. One will always demand what the other forbids. The world's values directly oppose heaven's principles. What the world calls success, I may call failure. What the world labels as weakness, I recognize as strength. What the world pursues, I often require you to abandon. This is why wholehearted devotion is essential. Half-hearted commitment leads to spiritual schizophrenia. You must choose this day whom you will serve. You cannot postpone this decision indefinitely. The longer you delay, the more difficult the choice becomes. Compromise has a way of hardening the heart. The refining fire. My fire is coming, not a fire of destruction, but of refinement. It will burn away every trace of hypocrisy and every mask you wear. Every hint of complacency will be consumed. Everything you've clung to while convincing yourself you're doing fine. I will no longer allow deception to attach itself to you. You have been chosen to live in truth. Truth with yourself, truth with me, and truth with your calling. This cannot begin if you continue hiding and denying. If you keep holding fragments of a life never meant for you. The refining process is both painful and beautiful, like precious metals heated until impurities rise to the surface. The heat reveals what was always there but hidden. The fire doesn't create the dross, it exposes it. What emerges from the refiner's fire is purer, stronger, and more valuable than what entered. But the process requires remaining in the fire until the work is complete. Premature removal leaves impurities intact. Many people pray for God's fire but flee when the heat becomes uncomfortable. They want purification without the process. But I am committed to your complete transformation. I will not settle for partial purification. The fire burns away pride, selfishness, fear, and unbelief. It consumes everything that hinders your spiritual growth. What remains is genuine faith, authentic love, and unshakable hope. These treasures are worth any temporary discomfort. The call to courage. Be courageous enough to release. Courageous enough to take the next step. Courageous enough to believe, not because you feel fully prepared, but because I will lead you every step. I do not promise you will never feel lonely, but I promise you will never be forsaken. I do not say you will not feel pain, but this pain will lead to abundant life. I never allow anything unless it moves you closer to the eternal purpose I etched into you before the world's foundations. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is action taken despite fear. It is choosing to obey when emotions scream for retreat. True courage comes from knowing that I am with you, that my strength is made perfect in your weakness. The giants you face are not insurmountable. The mountains before you are not immovable. What seems impossible to human eyes is routine for divine power. What appears overwhelming to earthly wisdom is simple for heavenly understanding. I have never given you a vision that I will not fulfill. I have never planted a dream that I will not bring to pass. But the journey from promise to fulfillment requires courage. It demands persistence when circumstances suggest giving up. Courage grows through exercise. Each act of obedience increases your capacity for the next assignment. The moment of decision. So, my beloved, resist no longer. Do not delay the yes I've been waiting to hear from your heart. Stop finding excuses to justify spiritual delay. The time has come. Grace is knocking at your door. My arms are outstretched wide. In this moment, I require not perfection, but total surrender. Let me take you where every false covering falls away, where every chain will be broken. Let your mind be still before me, like calm waters awaiting morning sun's reflection. In that stillness, you will finally hear what you've been missing, my voice. Decision-making reveals character. The choices you make in critical moments define your spiritual trajectory. This moment is critical. This choice is defining. What you decide now will echo through eternity. Procrastination is a form of rebellion. Delay often disguises disobedience. Later frequently means never. But yes, spoken in faith, releases heaven's resources. Immediate obedience unlocks divine provision. The decision to surrender is rarely convenient. It typically requires sacrifice. It usually demands change. But every sacrifice made in obedience to my will is an investment in eternal rewards. Every change embraced for my sake leads to greater glory. The stillness I require is not passivity. It is active trust. It is dynamic faith. It is engaged surrender. The divine dismantling. Stop deceiving yourself, my child. I know how you've pacified your heart with logical rationalizations, with justifications wrapped in moral appearance, with faith that seems steady but lacks true roots in my presence. What is coming is not senseless punishment. I am not a God who rages without cause. What is coming is divine dismantling, a holy tearing down of what no longer belongs to you. Structures that once held you up now only trap you in false security. The necessary unraveling of what is no longer rooted in me, of what you have built on sand rather than rock. Dismantling is not destruction, it is deconstruction with purpose. It is the careful removal of what no longer serves the plan. Like renovating a house, some walls must come down to create better space. Some systems must be replaced to improve function. The dismantling process may create temporary chaos. Dust may fill the air. Normal routines may be disrupted. But this temporary inconvenience produces permanent improvement. The finished product justifies the process. I am not dismantling your life to leave you homeless. I am clearing space for a better structure. The blueprint has already been drawn. The materials are already prepared. The workers are already assigned. Your cooperation with the dismantling process determines how smoothly the reconstruction proceeds. The exposure of hidden things. I've seen you hide behind achievements, behind titles you use to cover fear of being forgotten. I've watched you wrap yourself in religious expressions like armor, approaching me in form but staying distant in heart. You've grown accustomed to serving, while your soul withers for lack of true communion with me. I've seen times you read my word, but your thoughts were elsewhere. I've heard prayers spoken aloud while your heart stayed locked away, afraid that if it opened, my light would expose corners you weren't ready to face. Exposure is not meant to embarrass, but to heal. Light reveals what darkness conceals. The hidden things I bring to light are not secrets to me. I have always seen them clearly. But you cannot deal with what you refuse to acknowledge. You cannot heal what you will not examine. Exposure creates opportunity for cleansing. Revelation opens the door to restoration. The shame you feel when hidden things are revealed is not from me. Shame is the enemy's counterfeit for conviction. Conviction leads to repentance. Repentance leads to forgiveness. Forgiveness leads to freedom. Shame leads to hiding. Hiding leads to isolation. Isolation leads to spiritual death. I expose to liberate, not to condemn. I reveal to redeem, not to reject. The worship of false securities. You have worshipped control and clung to familiarity. You have bowed to the sweet fear of, at least it's not worse. You've placed hope in relationships more than in my covenant with you. You've leaned on reasoning and logic rather than my spirit's leading. Because everything still functions, you thought I was pleased. But I have not come to maintain the systems you built. I have come to tear them down, to rebuild something entirely new on an unshakable foundation, my very self. False securities are subtle idols. They seem reasonable and practical. They appear wise and necessary. But any security not rooted in me is ultimately false. Any foundation not built on my truth will eventually crumble. The worship of control is perhaps the most deceptive idol. It promises peace through manipulation of circumstances. But true peace comes from surrendering control to the one who actually governs all things. Familiarity breeds comfort, but also complacency. The known path seems safer than the unknown journey. But I often call my people to leave the familiar and embrace the uncertain. Abraham left his homeland not knowing where he was going. Moses led Israel through the wilderness rather than taking the shorter, more familiar route. David spent years in the desert before claiming his throne. The familiar may feel safe, but it can also become a prison. It can prevent growth and limit potential. Beyond justification. This is not the time to justify yourself, not the time for excuses like, "This season is too difficult," or "Everyone else is doing it." I did not call you to merely survive. I called you to live in life's fullness. To step into that, I must break things you've clung to, even if they seem harmless or good. Because if it does not come from me, sooner or later it will destroy you. Justification is the mind's attempt to avoid responsibility. It seeks to explain away disobedience. But explanations do not eliminate consequences. Excuses do not change outcomes. The difficulty of circumstances does not reduce the standard of righteousness. Hard times test character. They don't excuse its absence. Everyone else is doing it has never been an acceptable standard for my people. I call you to be holy as I am holy. Your calling is not to blend in with the crowd, but to stand out as light in darkness, salt in a tasteless world. The things I ask you to release may indeed seem harmless. They may even appear beneficial. But if they are not part of my plan for your life, they become obstacles to your destiny. Good can be the enemy of best. Acceptable can prevent excellent. Satisfactory can block supernatural. A doorway to new beginnings. Remember, breaking is not the end. Breaking is the doorway to new beginning. When the old vessel is shattered, I can pour new wine. When walls of pride and pretense collapse, I can lay hands to build the true temple. Not one made of bricks and stones, but of genuine worship and deep surrender. My child, if you feel things being stripped away, if everything seems out of control, it is not because I have abandoned you. It is because I am drawing near. So near that I cannot allow anything not of me to remain within you. New beginnings require endings. Resurrection demands crucifixion. Life emerges from death. Death. The breaking you experience is birth pains. Something new is coming forth. something beautiful is being born. But birth is a process that cannot be rushed. It has its own timing and rhythm. Your cooperation with the process determines how difficult the delivery becomes. Fighting against the breaking increases the pain. Yielding to the process allows grace to flow. Surrendering to my will releases my power. The new thing I am creating in you has never existed before. It is uniquely yours. It cannot be duplicated or replicated. This is why the old must be completely removed. Remnants of the former thing would contaminate the new creation. The God of rebirth. I know it frightens you. You hoped I would only make a few adjustments and repair some cracks. But beloved, I am not a makeup artist. I am the God of rebirth. I was reading, I did not come to decorate your old life, but to make you entirely new from the inside out. That is why the breaking must come. Without it, you would never let go of what has been silently killing you. I love you far too much to let you settle for an average life. Rebirth is more radical than reform. It goes deeper than renovation. It is complete recreation. The caterpillar does not become a butterfly through improvement. It must completely dissolve in the cocoon. Only then can the new creature emerge with wings to soar. The process seems like death, but it leads to transformation. You have been in your cocoon long enough. The dissolution phase is nearly complete. Soon you will discover wings you never knew you possessed. Capabilities that were dormant are awakening. The flight pattern of your new life will amaze even you. The heights you will reach will surpass your imagination. But you must trust the process. You must remain in the cocoon until the transformation is complete. Premature emergence would be tragic. Partial transformation would be insufficient. The love that refines. I love you so much that I am willing to let you be upset with me for a season if it means rescuing your soul for eternity. I love you enough to not tolerate the compromises eating away at your faith. I will never make peace with pretense, because I am holy. If you belong to me, then you too must be refined in that holiness. So do not be afraid when everything around you begins to shake. Do not mistake shaking as a sign I've left you. It is the clearest sign that I am drawing near. Love sometimes requires difficult decisions. A surgeon's love for the patient demands cutting away diseased tissue. A parent's love for a child requires discipline, even when it causes temporary tears. My love for you demands your highest good, not your momentary comfort. I see the end from the beginning. I know what compromises will lead to spiritual cancer. I recognize which tolerances will become spiritual tumors. The refining love removes these threats before they metastasize. It cuts away what would eventually destroy. This love may seem harsh to those who don't understand its purpose, but those who submit discover its healing power. The shaking you experience is not random earthquake, it is purposeful renovation. I am strengthening the foundation while updating the structure. I am difficult. The miraculous transformation. When the wind grows stronger, when things once firm begin to tremble, know that I am stepping into your room, not to accuse but to redeem. Not to shame you, but to restore your true identity in my kingdom. If you let me work in your heart, if you do not resist when my light exposes hidden places, you will witness the miraculous. Where fear once lived, courage will rise. Where secrecy ruled, freedom will blossom. Where shame weighed you down, you will behold the glory only I can give. Transformation is my specialty. I specialize in impossible cases. I excel at hopeless situations. What seems irreversibly broken in human eyes is perfectly repairable in mine. What appears beyond redemption is well within my range. The miraculous begins when human effort ends, when you stop trying to fix yourself and let me do the work. Your attempts at self-improvement often hinder my transformative power. Your striving can interfere with my sovereignty. The clay does not instruct the potter. The metal does not direct the refiner. The patient does not perform surgery on themselves. Submit to my skilled hands, trust my perfect technique, rest in my proven ability. The transformation I produce is complete and permanent. It changes not just behavior but desire, not just actions but motivations, not just the outside but the inside. Living in truth. You will no longer live weary from pressure to maintain an image. You will live freely in the truth that you are my child, unconditionally loved, eternally chosen, and sent forth with power from heaven. So come low, beloved. You don't have to be strong. Come close to me in truth, with tears if necessary, with empty hands but an open heart. I don't need you to be perfect. I just need you to be honest. Truth is the atmosphere of my kingdom. Pretense cannot survive in my presence. The image you've struggled to maintain is exhausting and unnecessary. I see through facades anyway. Your attempts to appear perfect only distance you from my grace. Grace flows to the humble, not the proud. The truth about your weakness qualifies you for my strength. Your inadequacy makes room for my adequacy. Empty hands can receive gifts. Full hands cannot grasp new opportunities. Honesty opens the door to healing. Authenticity attracts authentic relationship. Yours truly, as Brutal Kozer. Friendship. When you stop pretending, you can start becoming. When you cease performing, you can begin growing. The beautiful beginning. If you do that, then the breaking will not be the end. It will be the beginning of the most beautiful thing you have ever known. A beginning not birthed by human effort, but by my own hand, your creator. This is why I continue calling you to awaken from seemingly harmless spiritual slumber, calling you to step out of flesh's comforts and face the spiritual reality you were created to live within fully. Beauty emerges from ashes, glory rises from dust, strength develops through weakness. The beginning I offer is unlike any human new start. It is divinely initiated and supernaturally sustained. This new chapter will surpass every previous season. The best is yet to come. What you thought was your peak was merely preparation. What seemed like your ceiling becomes your foundation. The spiritual awakening I offer transforms every aspect of existence. Nothing remains untouched by my recreating power. Your relationships will change, your priorities will shift, your perspective will expand. Your capacity for joy will increase, your ability to love will deepen, your understanding of purpose will clarify. This awakening affects not just your spiritual life, but your emotional, mental, and physical well-being. The sacred collision. I am not calling you to burden you. I am calling because I know if you remain asleep in the safety zone, you will lose the most precious thing of all, your truest self in me. My child, it is time to wake up. Not just to know, but to be ready. Not just to hear my voice, but to respond with deep obedience. I have withheld nothing from you. I have spoken plainly, and now I emphasize once more. There will be a removal. The collision between your will and mine is not accidental. It is the moment of truth that defines everything. This sacred intersection determines whether you will live in regret or fulfillment, whether you will experience abundance or lack. The safety zone feels secure but produces stagnation. Comfort zones become comfort prisons. Growth requires risk. Expansion demands stretching. Increase necessitates change. The truest version of yourself exists beyond your current limitations. That person is waiting to emerge. But emergence requires environment. The right conditions must be created. The proper atmosphere must be established. The removal that delivers. But do not be afraid when you hear that word. The removal I speak of is not your destruction. It is your deliverance. Not the end of your soul, but the end of those parts within you that cannot cross into eternal life. You will not be abandoned or condemned, but whatever cannot stand in my holiness's radiance will no longer be allowed to remain. The fragments within you that do not belong to my kingdom must be cut away so what I originally intended can rise, pure, strong, and shaped in my image. Removal is surgical, not violent. It is precise, not random. It is purposeful, not punitive. The surgeon removes only what threatens health. The gardener prunes only what hinders growth. I remove only what prevents your flourishing, only what blocks your breakthrough, only what limits your potential. The parts of you that align with my nature will not only remain but be strengthened, enhanced, glorified. What belongs to my kingdom will be preserved and perfected. What originates from my heart will be protected and promoted. The removal process reveals what is eternal versus what is temporal, what is precious versus what is worthless. The death of pretense. Beloved child, this is not life's death, it is pretense's death. This is the moment when everything false within you must fall, nothing left standing. The masks you wore to please others, to shield yourself from pain, to hide from truth's light, they must all be consumed. Masks cannot pray sincerely, masks cannot love genuinely, and masks cannot survive my glory's blazing presence. Pretense is exhausting and ultimately futile. It requires constant maintenance and vigilant protection. The energy spent maintaining false images could be invested in authentic growth. The effort required to sustain pretense could fuel genuine progress. Masks may fool people, but never fool me. They may provide temporary comfort, but never produce lasting peace. The death of pretense is actually the birth of authenticity. The end of performance is the beginning of relationship. When masks fall, real faces appear. When pretense dies, genuine personality emerges. This authentic self is infinitely more attractive than any manufactured image, more powerful than any crafted persona. The love that burns. I love you as you truly are, not the image you crafted to make life appear put together. Take time to accept this. By this very love, I will burn away all that dims my glory's brilliance in you. My child, I see what lies deep in your heart, what no one else sees. I see the idols you've secretly built, the desires you pursue with all your strength, though they were never born of me. The expectations you've placed on yourself, on others, on this world. Love that burns is love that purifies. It is not destructive but constructive, not harmful but healing. The burning removes impurities without damaging the essential. It separates dross from gold, chaff from wheat. This love sees potential where others see problems. It recognizes treasure where others see trash. My burning love never consumes what belongs to my kingdom. It only removes what hinders kingdom manifestation. The idols you've built are not necessarily evil things. They may be good things elevated to wrong positions. Family, career, ministry, even personal holiness can become idols when they replace me as the primary focus. Expectations become idols when they determine your emotional state, when disappointment devastates and fulfillment satisfies more than my presence. The silent gods. These have become silent gods, occupying the place meant only for me. But you were not created to worship control, fame, or human affirmation. You were created to walk in complete trust in the one who formed you, the one who knows your weaknesses and potential and still chose you. Therefore, the things you've tried to hide I will bring into the light, not to shame you but to set you free. The sins you thought were buried, the compromises you believed were forgotten, the hidden corners you assumed no one could see. Silent gods are perhaps the most dangerous because they operate beneath conscious awareness. They influence decisions without announcing their presence. These subtle idols shape priorities, determine responses, and direct energy toward their altars. They demand worship while denying their deity. The god of control whispers that you must manage every detail. The god of fame promises significance through recognition. The god of human affirmation insists that approval equals acceptance, that validation equals value. But I created you for intimate relationship with me, for dependence on my strength, for confidence in my love. The freedom I offer liberates you from the exhausting demands of false gods, from the impossible standards of silent idols. The rescue mission. I will reveal them before you, not to accuse, but to cleanse. I do not want you carrying those chains any longer. They have silenced your voice, clouded your spiritual sight and smothered the fire that once burned brightly for me. But today, my child, I come to rescue. I come to break. I come to raise what was once dead back to life. The pride in your heart, no matter how subtle or hidden, must be brought low. Pride cannot walk with humility. You cannot follow me while your heart remains full of yourself. Rescue missions require courage from both rescuer and rescued. I have infinite courage. The question is whether you will cooperate with the rescue. Sometimes rescue looks like destruction to those being saved. The fireman breaking down the door seems like an intruder to someone trapped inside. But what appears destructive is actually deliverance. What seems invasive is actually intervention. The chains I break have bound you longer than you realize. They have become so familiar that you mistake them for jewelry. But chains are chains regardless of how beautiful they appear. Bondage is bondage, no matter how comfortable it feels. Pride is perhaps the strongest chain because it convinces you that you don't need rescue, that you can save yourself. The Babel Towers of the mind. I will tear down every Babel Tower you've built in your mind, every belief that you know enough, every attitude that resists counsel, every quiet rebellion against my direction. Pride is a wall between us, and I will not allow anything to stand between a father and his child. Fear, the silent enemy that has lived with you far too long, must also be cast out. It has disguised itself as a friend, as wisdom's voice, as protection. Mental towers of pride are constructed thought by thought, brick by brick, justification upon justification. They seem like monuments to intelligence, but are actually barriers to relationship. Walls that separate, rather than bridges that connect. The higher these towers rise, the more isolated you become, the more distant my voice sounds. These structures must be demolished for communication to be restored, for intimacy to be reestablished. The demolition may be unsettling. You may feel intellectually naked, mentally exposed. But this vulnerability creates opportunity for divine wisdom to enter, for heavenly understanding to take residence. The chain of fear. But in truth, it is the chain that has held you back every time I called you forward. It has made you hesitate. It has confined you to safety circles. It has convinced you that at least you won't get hurt. But my child, you were made to soar, not hide in a nest. You were chosen to live by faith, not by caution. And faith, the kind I give, will drown out all fear if only you let me move in you. Fear masquerades as wisdom, but produces paralysis. It claims to protect, but actually imprisons. The safety circles fear creates become smaller over time. The comfort zones contract with each compromise. Eventually, fear can confine you to such a small space that merely existing becomes unbearable. Life becomes survival instead of adventure. But you were designed for flight, not hiding, created for exploration, not hibernation. The faith I provide is not reckless abandon, but confident trust, not blind optimism, but informed hope. This faith sees beyond present circumstances to eternal realities, beyond current limitations to future possibilities. The season of holy people. This is the season where I am preparing a holy people, not merely clean on the outside, but purified from the depths within. A people who do not pretend. A people who speak not just spiritual words, but live from souls deeply touched by my presence. And you, yes you, are called to be part of that people. But to become that, everything false within you must be removed. Everything that cannot pass through holiness's fire must be left behind. Holiness is not religious performance, but authentic relationship. Not outward conformity, but inward transformation. The holy people I am preparing will impact their generation through authenticity, not activity, through character, not charisma. They will speak with authority because they have been with me. They will demonstrate power because they have surrendered to mine. These are not perfect people, but purified people. Not sinless, but cleansed. Not flawless, but forgiven. Their influence flows from their intimacy with me, Their effectiveness springs from their emptiness of self. They do not strive to be spiritual. They simply overflow with my spirit. They do not work to be holy. They rest in my holiness. The life truly alive. When that moment comes, when you are willing to let me prune, to let me burn away, to let me rebuild, then you will step into a life truly alive. A life no longer sustained by appearances. No longer tossed about by the search for approval. No longer weary from straddling two worlds. You will live in freedom, the kind that flows from knowing who you are in me. You will walk in joy, not because everything is easy, but because you are certain of the one who walks with you. Life truly alive is qualitatively different from mere existence. It has depth, purpose, and meaning that transcends circumstances. This life is not dependent on external conditions for its vitality. It has an internal source that never runs dry. The freedom this life enjoys is not freedom from responsibility, but freedom in responsibility. Not license, but liberty. Joy becomes a constant companion because its source is constant. Peace becomes a permanent resident because its foundation is permanent. This life attracts others not through promotion but through demonstration, not through words but through witness. The sacred stream. You will breathe with true breath. Breath not drawn from claims or human agendas, but from the unending sacred stream flowing from me. My child, I have not called you for loss, I have called you for restoration. But true restoration always begins with necessary breaking. Let me do this work. Let me burn away what stands between us. Let me rebuild you not as you once were, but as I have always dreamed you to be. The sacred stream is the source of all spiritual life. It flows from my throne to every thirsty soul who opens their heart to receive. This stream carries more than water. It carries life itself, hope itself, power itself. When you drink from this stream, you will never thirst again. Not because your circumstances become perfect, but because your source becomes eternal. The breath you draw from this stream fills your lungs with heaven's atmosphere, your spirit with divine energy. This is not metaphorical language, but spiritual reality. As real as the air you breathe, and far more essential. The unshaken foundation. One who belongs fully to me, strong in faith, unshaken by any storm. Do not resist this process. Do not cling to what has already died. Do not fear the flame. My fire does not destroy your soul. It destroys everything keeping you from burning with holy passion in me. The time has come, my child. The moment is no longer distant. An unshaken foundation is not built in a day. It requires deep excavation, careful preparation, and patient construction. The storms that shake other structures only prove the stability of what I build. The earthquakes that topple other towers only demonstrate the security of my construction. This foundation goes deeper than circumstances, emotions, or human understanding. It reaches into the bedrock of eternal truth. When everything visible trembles, what is invisible remains firm. When temporary things collapse, eternal things endure. The strength I build into you is not your own. It is mine working through you. Not human determination, but divine durability. This strength does not come from avoiding difficulties, but from walking through them with me, not from the absence of struggle, but from my presence in the struggle. The hour to rise. This is the hour for you to rise, not in your own strength, but in my Spirit's fullness. When you surrender, when you dare to let me lead you through what once seemed like barren wasteland, you will discover it is the very place where I have long been waiting for you. Luminest le puits, a place where the counterfeit dies so that true life can rise and remain forever. My beloved, you have wrestled long enough, resisting my hand in weariness you did not even recognize. The hour to rise is also the hour to realize, to understand what has been happening in the hidden seasons, to comprehend why certain doors closed and others opened, why some relationships ended and others began. Rising requires leaving the low places, the valleys of self-pity, the caverns of compromise, the ditches of despair. But rising also means you must release your grip on familiar handholds. Trust that my strength will lift you higher than your effort ever could. The wasteland you once feared becomes the launching pad for your destiny. The desert becomes the place of preparation for promised land living. The sacred collision. Each time I drew near, you recoiled as though I were the source of your pain, when in truth it was my love touching the calloused corners of your soul. Every time a hidden wound surfaced, you thought I was turning away, that I was punishing you, that I had forgotten. But no, my dear one, what you're walking through is not abandonment. It is the sacred collision of my hand, gently yet firmly, turning you back toward the light. Sacred collisions often feel like spiritual accidents, unexpected encounters with divine truth that disrupt comfortable patterns. These collisions are not random but orchestrated, not coincidental but providential, not punishment but redirection. The pain you feel is not me attacking you, but me adjusting you. Not rejection, but correction. Not abandonment, but realignment. My love sometimes hurts because it heals. It cuts because it cures. It breaks because it rebuilds. The collision with my love exposes what needs healing, reveals what requires attention, uncovers what demands change. The remainder of identity. I am shaking you to remind you who you are, shaking you so you will look again to the one who has held your breath since the beginning. Shaking you so you will no longer turn away in quiet retreat. I know there have been moments when my silence made your heart grow heavy. Nights when you prayed and heard nothing. Times when you hurt and my voice seemed absent. You began to believe I was silent because you were no longer worthy. Identity confusion creates spiritual crisis. When you forget who you are in me, you begin accepting less than my best for your life. The shaking is not meant to destabilize, but to clarify, to remove false identities and restore true ones. You are not who your failures say you are, not who your critics claim you to be, not who your fears whisper you might become. You are who I declare you to be. Chosen before the foundation of the world, loved with everlasting love, destined for good works prepared in advance. My silence was never rejection, but invitation, opportunity for your faith to mature beyond feeling dependence. The silence trained your spiritual ears to hear beyond emotion, to recognize my voice beyond circumstances, the holy pause. But that silence was never my rejection. It was a holy pause, a space I crafted so your soul could choose me freely, not under compulsion or pressure, but because true love awakened from within. I did not create you to be a trembling servant, but a willing lover, one who delights in me by sacred choice. For that love to flourish, there were times I withdrew my words so you could learn to seek me, not for miracles, but because I myself am enough. The holy pause creates sacred space, room for authentic relationship to develop, time for genuine affection to grow. Forced love is not love at all, but compliance. Coerced devotion lacks authenticity. Pressured surrender produces performance, not passion. The pause allows your heart to discover what it truly wants, to choose what it genuinely desires, to pursue what it authentically values. During the pause, artificial motivations fade, external pressures diminish, internal realities emerge. What remains when all other influences are removed is the truth of your heart's condition, the reality of your spiritual appetite, the season of my voice. But now, my child, I will be silent no more. The days of stillness have passed. The season of my voice has come. I do not come now as a gentle morning breeze, but as a holy roar like thunder resounding from Mount Zion. I come to awaken, to shake, to turn the tide. No more delay, no more waiting. No more quiet invitations while your soul teeters near the brink of forgetting. The season of my voice is unmistakable. When I speak, hearts recognize the sound. Spirits respond to the frequency. This voice penetrates noise, overcomes confusion, and silences competing sounds. It speaks with authority that demands attention. The voice that spoke worlds into existence now speaks purpose into your life, direction into your confusion, hope into your despair. This is not gentle suggestion but divine command, not subtle hint but clear instruction, not whispered invitation but thunderous summons. The roar from Mount Zion shakes foundations and establishes truth. It exposes lies and reveals reality. When this voice speaks, things move, situations change, impossibilities become possibilities. The final alarm. I will not let you drift silently into the unknown without sounding the final alarm. My child, this is the hour in which I shake every foundation. Everything you believed was secure without me will tremble. Everything you've leaned on that I did not give will be removed. Everything you've held out of fear of losing, I will now take from your hands. Not to leave you empty, but to make room for what cannot be shaken. Final alarms demand immediate response. They signal that the window of opportunity is closing, that action must be taken now. This alarm is not meant to create panic but urgency, not fear but focus, not anxiety but attention. The shaking I bring is systematic and thorough. Nothing built on wrong foundations can survive the trembling. But what is built on rock remains steady. What is founded on truth stands firm. What is rooted in me endures forever. The removal process, though initially uncomfortable, ultimately creates space for better things, room for divine replacements. The shaking of heaven and earth. I have not come merely to knock gently, but to shake the heavens and the earth, not to frighten, but to make a way. Not to cause panic, but to make you know more clearly than ever before what is life and what is death. I am bringing separation, not between the good and the bad, but between what is true and what is false, between what I have planted and what the enemy has secretly sown, between the precious wheat and the worthless chaff. The shaking of heaven and earth represents total transformation. Nothing remains untouched by this divine intervention. Heaven shakes to release new dimensions of glory. Earth shakes to remove old systems of bondage. The shaking creates separation where mixture once existed, clarity where confusion once reigned, order where chaos once ruled. This separation is merciful, not harsh. It prevents contamination and promotes purification. It stops infection and starts healing. The wheat and chaff may look similar during growing season, but harvest reveals the difference. Shaking separates what appeared joined. The spiritual landscape. I have come to sweep clean the spiritual landscape of your soul, to remove the clutter, the haze, the lukewarm compromise. For I am the God of clarity, and in this hour there is no more room for confusion. You cannot step into the future I have ordained if you still carry within you half-beliefs, half-light, and half-truths. You once cried out, "Lord, show me the way," and now I am answering that prayer with blazing truth. The spiritual landscape includes thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and motivations, all the internal terrain that shapes external behavior. This landscape can become cluttered with conflicting ideas, competing loyalties, and confusing messages. The clutter creates spiritual smog that obscures vision. The sweep I bring is thorough and gentle. Like a loving caretaker clearing a garden, I remove what hinders growth while preserving what produces fruit. Clarity comes not through additional information but through spiritual purification, through the removal of what creates confusion. Half-truths are more dangerous than outright lies because they seem reasonable. They satisfy the mind while starving the spirit. The clear crossroads. No more ambiguity, no more hesitation. I will reveal to you step by step what must be cut away and what must be held onto with unwavering faith. I will expose the things you thought were right but were actually barriers between you and me. I will place you at clear crossroads, not to make your journey harder, but to give you the chance to choose life with finality. For the season of wavering has ended, the season of choosing has begun. Crossroads moments define destinies. They separate those who are serious about following me from those who merely appreciate my ideas. The clarity I provide eliminates excuses, removes ambiguity, creates accountability. When the choice is clear, the decision becomes a pure expression of will, not confusion, but conviction, not uncertainty, but understanding. The crossroads I place before you always offer life and death, blessing and curse. The choice is always yours, but the consequences are always mine to determine. Choosing requires courage because it eliminates other options. It demands commitment because it creates accountability. But choosing also releases power because it aligns will with purpose. It unlocks potential because it focuses energy. The path to true peace. My beloved, I know this is not easy to receive. I know your soul still trembles, still fears the pain of surrender. But look back. Have not the things you've clung to only worn you down, pulled you away from me, and dulled your ability to hear my voice? Was it not because you trusted in other voices, the voices of fear, of the past, of assumption, that you lost your direction? So now, let me do what only I can do. Wash you clean of every distorted sound. True peace is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of resolution. Not the elimination of challenges, but the assurance of victory. The things you've held tightly have become anchors dragging you down, rather than sails carrying you forward. They've shifted from helps to hindrances. The voices you've trusted have led you in circles rather than forward progress. They've created confusion rather than clarity. But I am the voice that leads to green pastures and still waters, that restores the soul and guides in paths of righteousness. My voice brings peace that surpasses understanding, rest that transcends circumstances, hope that defies logic. The sacred assurance. Break every limiting pattern and fill you with true life. Not a fleeting feeling, not human reasoning, but a sacred assurance no one can steal. In the midst of this shaking, you will come to see. Instability is not a trap, but grace. Loss is not a punishment, but the miracle that clears the path. The tearing within your soul is not a sign I have withdrawn, but the very evidence that I am making room to dwell fully within you. Sacred assurance is unshakable confidence in my character, my promises, and my plans. It remains steady when everything else wavers. This assurance is not based on circumstances, but on covenant. Not on feelings, but on faith. Not on sight, but on truth. The instability you experience is actually mercy in motion, grace working to create better stability, love laboring to establish firmer foundations. What seems like loss is actually liberation. What appears as ending is actually beginning. What feels like death is actually resurrection. The tearing makes room for healing. The breaking creates space for rebuilding. The emptying prepares for filling. The everlasting dwelling place. I do not merely want to touch you. I long to inhabit you. I do not wish to just visit. I desire to make your heart my everlasting dwelling place. So, my child, do not fear the roar. Do not fear the shaking. Do not fear the tears that will fall in the cleansing process. For on the other side of the roar, on the far side of the trembling, there is peace that cannot be shaken. The invitation to become my dwelling place is the highest honor I can bestow, to be the temple where my presence rests permanently. This requires complete consecration, total dedication, absolute surrender. Nothing can remain that would defile the temple, but the privilege of hosting my presence transforms everything. My glory fills what was once empty. My power energizes what was once weak. My peace settles what was once anxious. My joy replaces what was once sorrowful. My love heals what was once broken. The dwelling place I create in you becomes a sanctuary for others, a place where the weary find rest, where the lost find direction. Strength that is mine, strength that is not your own but mine, and a life no longer fragmented but wholly restored. And above all, there I am, the one who has waited not to condemn, but to reach for your hand and say, "Let's begin again," this time with me at the center. Now, let your heart respond. Let your soul resonate with the voice from heaven. True to heaven is a search for light. Let your tears become the river that washes away long-standing burdens. The strength I provide is not merely enhanced human ability, but divine power working through human vassals, supernatural strength operating in natural circumstances. This strength does not fluctuate with mood or circumstance. It remains constant because its source is constant, reliable because its foundation is reliable. The restoration I offer is not piecemeal repair, but wholesale renewal, not patching, but replacing, not improving, but transforming. Fragmentation ends when my wholeness enters. Division ceases when my unity takes residence. Confusion stops when my clarity establishes order. The response of surrender. Let your hands lift, not in fear, but in surrender, for I am drawing near. I am no longer silent, and if you open your heart, you will see. I have never been far. I have never stopped seeking you. And it is never too late to begin living as you were created to live, in my light, in my will, and in my unshakable presence. The response I seek is not complicated ritual, but simple surrender. Not elaborate ceremony, but sincere commitment. Lifted hands symbolize released control. Open palms represent willingness to receive. Raised arms declare dependence on divine strength. My nearness is not dependent on your performance, but on your openness. I draw close to those who draw close to me. The seeking heart always finds me, because I am already seeking them. The searching soul always discovers me, because I am already present. It is never too late, because my mercy is new every morning. My grace is sufficient for every moment. My love never fails or fades. The eternal invitation. The truth is, you are not truly ready for what is swiftly approaching. This call to awakening demands a response that goes beyond surface preparation. Your spiritual preparation must match the magnitude of what is coming. For the true battle is not fought in the external realm, but within the depths of your soul. But I am not calling you because you are ready. I am calling you to become ready, not because you are qualified, but because I will qualify you. The preparation I require is not in your strength, but in my grace, not through your effort, but through my power. Come as you are, but do not plan to stay as you are. Let my love transform what your willpower could never change. This is your moment. This is your hour. This is your invitation to step into the life you were created to live. Will you respond?